Amendment number 4, offered by Senators Tarr and Fatman, the title of which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 4 by Senators Tarr and Fatman, opt in.
The chair recognizes the senator from Worcester and Norfolk, Mr. Fatman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in favor of this amendment. Earlier tonight, I have to admit, I was very encouraged. The gentleman from Lynn, when we were debating the physical education bill, made the comment, parents should be asked, what do they want for their children? And I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what this amendment is all about. Parents should be asked, what do they want for their children? They should not be told. And this amendment does exactly that. It allows parents to opt in when talking about sensitive information that their children is going to be taught. This amendment specifically, with regards to sexual education, would allow for 30 days' notice for the parent so that they could review materials, make sure that this was appropriate for their child, make sure that they had conversations with their teachers and their administrators, make sure that their school committees were well informed so that they knew exactly what was being taught to their children. This is what I think the gentleman was getting at earlier tonight, and this is the principle to which I think that this Commonwealth should hold. I hope the amendment is adopted, and when doing so, I ask for a call of the yeas and nays.
Not enacted. That when a vote on the matter be taken by a call of the yeas and nays, those joining with them rise and be counted. And a sufficient number having arisen. When the vote on the matter be taken, it will be taken by a call of the yeas and the nays. Anybody debating against? Ms. Chandler.
I rise in opposition to this redrafted amendment. This amendment would strike at the very core, the very heart of what we're trying to do here with this bill. I sponsored a bill originally that would require the schools teach sex education for our students with an opt-out. The bill before us doesn't even require the schools teach sex education, only that if they do, it be medically accurate and parents be afforded the opportunity to opt out. This amendment would require that parents have to proactively opt in by giving written permission. This would prevent a significant number of children from receiving important information about how to make healthy choices. I represent a district that has a large number of minority children whose parents do not speak English as a second language, as a first language. Getting this information would be very difficult. The current statute governing parental notification, Chapter 71, Section 32A, requires opt-out. The bill before us strengthens the opt-out procedures by specifying the notification required by the schools. I am not in favor of changing the current system, which was already in place, and working to a more onerous system for the school district that would result in less children receiving comprehensive sex education. In this effort, we are in good company. The vast majority of states have an opt-out policy. If this regressive amendment were to be accepted, we would be joining only Arizona and Utah in becoming an opt-in state. In addition, this amendment creates a great deal of uncertainty for schools. How will they be able to guess how many students will sign up? How will they budget for classes when they don't know how many students will sign up? I think that the bill before us strikes the balance in ensuring parent choice and providing some predictability for the school. I would also suggest to you that, unfortunately, too many children today are basically getting their education from the buses and from other friends, and quite frankly, they need to have better tools to make healthy decisions when faced with peer pressure or when given false information about sexual activity and the associated risks. This problem is real. In my community, it is very real. It's happening every day in every one of our communities, actually. Teen pregnancy rates are too high. Sexually transmitted diseases continue to spread. we can and we should take action to make sure that the next generation is better prepared to make healthy choices. And for these reasons, I ask you to vote against this amendment. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the senator from Plymouth and Barnstable, Mr. DiMacedo.
Mr. President, and through you to my colleagues, I rise in support of this amendment. The reality is that we already have a program in place in regards to sex education, and this is going to centralize how we do that, as opposed to allowing our school districts that are already addressing this issue, and many school districts around the Commonwealth. And we're centralizing it all now with DESE. And I believe that, in fact, this enables an opportunity for us as individuals to allow communities to opt in and students to opt in. The school committees will have the opportunity, given the curriculum, to decide and vote on this legislation, and then also it will be an elective program. When it comes to issues that we're dealing with, the reality is some people choose to deal with this differently. Not all parents feel the same way. And so if they want to, they can certainly do opt into the sex education program once they know what it's about. But to have one size fits all, clearly our districts are very different. The reality is our communities that we all come from are very different and address issues differently. As parents, we address the way we teach our children very differently. And this, in fact, is, I think, by all standards, a very sensitive topic, and some people want to address it in different ways. So simply by doing this, in my personal opinion, it enables the individuals, the families, to have an opportunity to participate and be part of this process and have a comfort level that what their children are being taught, they're comfortable with. What is age appropriate? What is medically accurate? There are a lot of questions that you may all feel comfortable with, but some people may not. It doesn't make them bad people because they disagree with you. It's just that they feel that they want to address this topic in a different way. And so to me, this is a perfect way to solve the issue. We're addressing the concerns that I think many people have, and I want to commend those of you who have put this together. I know your intentions are legitimate, and you want to make sure that people are well informed, the kids are well informed. But the reality is, in regards to this is not math and science or geography. This is a different aspect of education that some people don't necessarily have the same level of comfort with that others may. And so to that extent, the opt-in amendment, I believe, would resolve that issue, and we could move forward and we could all support this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
From Middlesex and Suffolk, Mr. DiDomenico.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are nearly 40% of high school students engaged in sexual activity right now in the state of Massachusetts. 40%. Without the advantage, some of our kids having the advantage of sex education in their classroom. Some making bad choices for themselves and for their health. We don't opt in for science, math, English. And I would venture to guess that this is just as important as those subjects. This subject will save lives and help people make good decisions for themselves. And if they don't, it could have lifelong ramifications for themselves and their families. Opting in for a crucial part of our education is unacceptable. It should be part of our curriculum. When you look across our cities across our Commonwealth, I represent Everett, which could be considered a little more conservative, on the conservative side. My son is in 5th grade. They're introducing sex education at 5th grade in the city of Everett. U.S. statistics also prove sex education lowers sexual activity among our youth. Not increase it, lowers it, because they have all the information in front of them. Opting in for this kind of program doesn't really make a lot of sense. We already have that covered in our bill. You can opt out. Our bill makes it even stronger. Our bill gives school districts clearer guidance on how to notify parents of these programs, a written policy that has to be given to a parent when they request it. When you opt in for something so important, you minimize the importance of what we're trying to accomplish here today. This would gut the bill. Make no mistake about it. It would gut the bill. This is too important for us to go forward without this piece included. And I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tarr.
Gentleman who just spoke, and I appreciate his passion and his commitment to this issue, and I appreciate everyone's opinion on this matter. And I think there are good arguments to be made on all sides of this, and Mr. President, I hope that we will continue as a Senate to debate this issue as respectfully as we have as we move forward. But, Mr. President, I would be remiss if I didn't stand up and say how alarmed I am at some of the concerns that have been expressed and some of the criticisms that have been expressed. Mr. President, the gentleman who just took his seat, who has spent a considerable amount of time advocating for this measure, I think in many ways has convinced me of the necessity of this amendment. Mr. President, this is fundamentally different than math and science and English because it involves morality, because it involves sensitive subjects that can have ramifications for the rest of someone's life. I agree with the gentleman, and that's why I believe this amendment is important. Because, Mr. President, if we are going to stand here and suggest that we should say that it's okay if parents do not get involved in this discussion, it's okay if children default into this program, because that's what I heard in two of the comments that were made by the proponents of this bill just moments ago, that we need this because otherwise we won't have kids get involved, so we need to make sure they default into this program if their parents don't get involved. Mr. President, it is well-established law in this country, as it should be, that the fundamental educator of a student is a parent. And, Mr. President, I believe it's a sad day when we stand and suggest that we are going to tolerate a lack of parental engagement and suggest that somehow defaulting into a subject matter of this nature is acceptable. I don't believe it is. Mr. President, I agree with the importance of this form of education, and that's why I think having engagement at the community level and at the parental level is absolutely critical. And I don't agree that it's okay to say, well, don't worry if the parents are not involved because they're going to default into this program and the state will take care of it with curriculum guidelines that may not be in accord with either the school in particular question or the individual family in particular question. I get the temptation to say, let's just allow everyone to not have to make a choice and default into it. I get that and I understand it. But, Mr. President, unfortunately that doesn't comport with the notion of the parent being the primary educator of the student. It doesn't comport with the notion long held in this Commonwealth that sexual education should comport with the mores of the individual community in which it's being offered. It doesn't comport with the idea that we so often pursue in this chamber about trying to stimulate parental engagement. In fact, it does the opposite. It suggests that the success of the program hinges on not having parental involvement and having large numbers of students default into it. As I said, Mr. President, I agree with the idea that this form of education is important, but I am deeply concerned about what I'm hearing in defense of the bill without this amendment. Mr. President, I just want to be clear that there are two components to this. Number one would require the school committee by an affirmative vote to accept to offer this form of education, allowing the community to have a discussion, allowing there to be accountability and transparency, which we so often talk about in this chamber. And the second part of the amendment, Mr. President, and I know you're looking it up right now, but I can help you because I'll get to the second part right now. The second part would allow the course to be offered as an elective course and require parental consent. So in some ways, Mr. President, while there may be some who would suggest that there's a wide rift between this amendment and the bill that is presented to us without it, I would suggest that the issue is on the burden of proof. Who gets to decide whether a student is involved in the program? Does the student get to decide, or does the parent get to decide by having to make an affirmative action? Or is it okay for the student to default into the program and nobody has made a decision other than the school committee to offer the particular program, but the involvement of the parent is not necessary? That's the problem, Mr. President. I respect both sides of the issue. I'm deeply concerned about some of the unintended consequences of this bill without this particular amendment. And as a result, I hope that the amendment is adopted.
From Middlesex and Suffolk, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my good friend from Gloucester, who is more eloquent than I am when it comes to speaking on this floor. But I also wanted he mentioned that parent involvement and parents are the first teachers, and I agree with him on that aspect. And parents will be notified. Again, there will be notifications sent to the parents at their home in languages that are most common in those districts. The parents will not be left out of the process. Parents will be notified, and if they choose to look deeper into the issue, there will be a written policy for them to inspect and to look at. And then if they choose to opt their children out of that education, they can do so. And not only that, the schools themselves can opt out of educating our kids in this manner. There are safeguards set up all along this entire bill for our parents, for our schools, for our communities. So our parents are involved. They're making decisions for their children. They're being notified. The information will be in front of them, and they choose based off what they see in front of them if it's the right thing for their child, and if it's not, then they don't have to do it. So parents are the educators for our kids, and parents do have a say in what the children are being taught in our schools. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Seat appears, and the clerk will call the roll.
No. Michael D. Brady. No. William M. Brownsberger. No. Harriet L. Chandler. No. Sonia Chang Diaz. Cynthia Stone Cream.
Senator Cream?
No. Viriato M. Di Macedo. Yes. Sal N. D. Domenico. No. Kenneth J. Donnelly. No. Eileen M. Donahue. No. Benjamin B. Downing. No. James B. Eldridge. No. Ryan C. Fatman. Yes. Jennifer L. Flanagan. Linda Dorsina Forey. No. Ann M. Goby. No. Robert L. Headland. Yes. Donald F. Humison Jr. Yes. Patricia D. Jalen. No. Brian A. Joyce. No. John F. Keenan. No. Eric P. Lesser. No. Jason M. Lewis. No. Barbara A. L'Italian. No. Joan B. Lovely. No. Thomas M. McGee. No. Mark C. Montigny. No. Michael O. Moore. Yes. Kathleen O'Connor Ives. No. Mark R. Pacheco.
No.
No. Anthony Petroselli. No. Michael J. Rodricks. No. Richard J. Ross. Yes. Michael F. Rush. Yes. Karen E. Spilka. No. Bruce E. Tarr. Yes. James E. Timilty. Yes. James T. Welch. No. Daniel A. Wolf. No.
Have all members been recorded? Senator from Suffolk, Ms. Chang Diaz.
Sonia Chang Diaz votes no.
Nine having voted in the affirmative, 29 in the negative. The amendment is not adopted.